Flosstube. It's Shellie from the Antiqueneedleworkers. This is a YouTube channel about cross stitch and all the crafty endeavors of myself and my friend Liz. If this is your first time with us, we just thank you so much for joining us in our journey. And if you're a returning subscriber, we thank you so much for coming back again. So today is such a neat day. It's the 1 month anniversary since we posted our first video. And so many of you have come along and joined the journey. And what a better way and time to shoot this video than to thank you for coming along with us. But today is the awaited mill tour. I'm going to take you up the driveway. I've come about a third of the way down the driveway because I want you to get a whole view and talk to you about the things on the outside and the inside. I'll take you on a full tour of the whole mill space. I'm not going to take you on a tour of the main house, but I will show you so that you can see how it's acclimated, and you'll learn a little bit more about what we've done here on the property. So to begin with, my husband and I bought this property when we were 17 years old, and we've been married 32 years, and we have used all that time to make a home. A lot of people do a lot of things. We do home, we do family, and so we've tried to create a place that's warm and inviting, that people can come and feel right at home, and we have enough space to share and host events for our family and our church. We've had several weddings here. All three of our children have actually been married on this property, and we've hosted weddings for close friends, and it's a lot of fun to share in the blessings that we've been given. So with that, I'm going to turn the camera and we'll get right to it. Okay guys, here we are. We're about a third of the way down the driveway, and you're going to say, what's that crazy thing there? This right here is a water flume that goes down all the way down to our pond. Those look like train trestles, I think, but we had a severe tornado. If you saw it, it made the national news. It was up in a town very close here, Goshen, and it came within a mile of our house, and it was such severe wind, it literally tore this the water tank that was up there. If you're familiar with that old show, Petticoat Junction, that's kind of what that tower looked like. But we have another one on the other side of the mill, so I'll show it to you over there. But it's a fun feature. When we built it, my children's friends thought we built a roller coaster in the yard. So I'm gonna, along the way, show you some really neat aspects of our property. Back here, we have a covered bridge on our service entrance. My husband's having a new toy garage built over there, so that's not him, that's the workers. But this is a side view of the mill. It's 4 stories, including a full basement, and then 3 stories above that. I'm going to pan you slowly over this way. On the other side of the driveway over here is our big pond, and that is where that water comes off the end of that water trough. So that's kind of a neat feature. I talked in video 1 about how we owned all the properties around us, and that the grandkids lived on the farm next door that we had. That's one of the houses right there in the barn, and to the left of that forward is another house, and that's where all the grandkids live, and 2 of our children live up on that property. And I also talked about the bridge that we built, which is right there. It covers the creek, and the grandkids are able to run down the pasture and come to Mimi and Poppy's house and never get near the road. So that is what I talked about in video 1 about the properties. Now I'm going to pan you around real slow, and what you're going to see is portions of the main house. It's all connected. and it comes all the way around to the mill. And I'll walk you up this way because I want you to get a view of the side of the mill real good. I will take you up to the driveway and we'll talk about all the different things before we go in. There's 3 pond features that make up the mill ponds, and this is the bottom pond. We come down here and we sit. It's an enjoyable place to sit and have a lemonade in the summer. That's a firestone. All we have to do is turn a little lever and fire comes there. The kids really enjoy that. They roast marshmallows and all that. Those are our church windows. We harvested them from an 1850s chapel in Indiana. They're one of my favorite things, and I will talk about them more when we get up there. But I'll walk up the limestone path here, and I'll take you up and show you the whole view of how the house and the mill are attached. This is the middle pond. It's a lot of fun. Okay, we'll walk on up here. Some of you thought that it was an old grist mill. It's not an old grist mill, it's a new grist mill. It all began all those years ago when we bought this property and my husband and my father-in-law built the main house. And this is the main house. It has a wraparound porch that goes literally all the way down and around the back. We're big porch peoples out here in the country. We love to sit on the porch with the grandbabies. And as I walk up the driveway, this is how it connects into the mill house. If I come out here to work and it's raining or snowing, I never have to get rained or snowed on because I have this nice portico porch over here and I can go door to door and never hit the rain. We love sitting out here with our grandchildren. They keep all their bikes and things stored over here in the portico. I love to stitch in my big Amish swing, and it goes all the way around. And of course there's lots and lots of bicycles and things that the grandkids keep over here to come and have fun. And so that is how it attaches. It is 2 complete full houses. There's 2 of everything. And but the mill house for us is a place where we get to enjoy company and have lots and lots of space. Up here is the water tank that I was talking about. There was a matching one over on that platform, but unfortunately that storm that we had tore it down. Speaking of storms, I actually shot this video yesterday and had to delete it. We had a windstorm unbelievably yesterday that felt like a hurricane. It literally was blowing so hard it threw me across the driveway. And over here, this top waterfall, the wind was blowing the water up the waterfall, and I was standing here trying to film and it was spraying me. So I had to scrap it. It was terrible, but today is a much better day. It's low wind and it's a little chilly, but it's all right. So this feature right here, the upper pond, we have koi up here, but more than koi, we have an abundance of tadpoles. And the grandkids' favorite thing to do when it's in the spring, if it's warm enough that they won't get hypothermia, they come over here and jump in this pond, which is about, to the top of their legs deep. And they have all their buckets over here. We keep them in this little bin. They have buckets and scoopers and they have a wonderful tadpole season all summer long. It's their favorite thing to do. They come over here and they say, who needs a swimming pool? We're going over to Mimi's and we're going to go catch some tadpoles and hang out in the mill pond. So anyway, this is a land bridge that we just crossed that leads to the front door of the mill. Normally, I would have come in if I walked across into that door, but I want to take you as my special guest in through the front door. And I also want to show you some neat things. We studied for a very long time the architecture of how old storefronts and grist mills would have looked. I'm going to try to get without a glare. I don't think I can. You'll be able to see inside that the mechanics that are running inside there where the belts come in from the water wheel. But we studied and we created this period correct, colors and all, to try to reproduce what it would look like if you really went to Gotsy's store or something of that nature. This window right here, I absolutely love to decorate it. And right now I have it decorated for what would you see in a mercantile window in the middle of the winter? Well, they would have things for the women to sew. So I have the window set up right now with my after Christmas winter display. And it's all about sewing and stitching. And I'll show you that real close. I love to decorate this window, and I'll talk more about that inside. Up here is the other part of the porch. We love to come out here and sit. We barbecue when we have company, and we have decorations all over. One of the aspects of deciding to build this mill was my husband and I love to collect antiques. But we are of such that if we can't display it or have it out, we're not going to collect it. Everything that you're going to see is everything that we have antique-wise. And we have nothing sitting in boxes. Everything is there. For us, there's no point in collecting if we can't show it. But I'm standing here. I love my church windows. They're so pretty. We have bulletproof glass on them on the outside, so if any rocks were happen to come up from grass cutting, we could actually keep them protected. But I'll show you more about those on the inside. And before we walk in, there was a few things I wanted to talk about. I have received a lot of questions about a few things, and I am going to answer those in just a minute when we get inside. This is the front door. And friends, I'd like to welcome you to my home. This is the front room, the living room of the mill. Before I start talking, I'm just going to go really slow and pan around. There's so very, very much for you to take in that I promise you, I have friends that have been here so many times, and they say every time they come, they see something brand new. And so I just want to pan really slow and go all the way around the room, and then I'll talk to you about all the things within it. While we're doing that, the few things that I wanted to talk to you about is I've received a whole lot of private messages asking about my farm animals and asking about my garden and my greenhouse. And so I want to tell you that at the end of this video, I am going to insert some photographs, and that way you can see them. I do love to garden. I have sheep and goats and chickens, and some of you heard me talk about that, And so I will insert the pictures. Another thing that I've got quite a bit of private messages about is my quilts upstairs. The massive stacks of quilts. I am going to talk to you about that when I get upstairs, I promise. All these things we collected. It's so much fun to go and collect, you know, that's our pastime. We enjoy that a whole lot. So as I'm walking up here, I'll take you and show you my front window. This window on this side is what I call my decorator window. I decorate this for different seasons. Like I said, on the outside, I have it decorated right now. So if you were looking into a mercantile or a general store, what would they be displaying because they wanted to try to cater to the needs of their customers for the time in which they were in. So it's winter time, so you would do an awful lot of sewing now, wouldn't you, if you were a woman back in the day? We just took down our Christmas display. Lots of tomatoes, gotta always have those tomatoes. And this is a reproduction of a early 1900s Sears sewing machine catalog. It's very neat. I thought that was really a cool thing that I got. But anyhow, I just took down Christmas. I put a Christmas tree right here. And then I have villages that encompass the whole bottom of this. On this side, it's the city, and on the left side of the Christmas tree, where it sits about where that sewing machine is, but to the left of that would be the country. And we deck this whole entire area. We deck the door all the way around the top. It's totally decorated in Christmas and in lights. It's a big deal. Our family, far and wide, both sides, and all of our really close friends come on Christmas Eve. And this is the beauty spot. If you are on Facebook, and I think I may have some on Instagram, but I know I do on Facebook, everybody takes their Christmas picture in front of the tree. It's a lot of fun. While we're standing here, like I said, I'm going to show you a few of my favorite things. This is my Victrola, and I love to turn this on when people come to visit because it sounds just like it would if you were in the time frame, and it's one of my favorite things. So I'm going to turn it on for you right now. Isn't that just neat? Back then, if you wanted to turn up the volume, you open the doors. All of our friends who have been over and have celebrated times in the mill with us, they feel the same way I do. It just puts you right in the mood, like you've stepped into a different time frame. So that's one of my favorite things. And over here, my husband and I, we spent 5 years in the process of harvesting and finding these old pumps, and these are antique belts. My husband refurbished them and completely built this line shaft by himself. Very proud of that. You'll see out there, you can see the wheel through the window going round and round. Such a neat thing. It really looks spectacular at Christmas too, with all the lights around it. So, but anyway, this is our popcorn wagon. It's from the early 1900s. We're the third owner of it. Originally, it was owned by a family that had 7 children, and they sold popcorn out of this wagon and put all 7 of those children through school. And it was originally horse-drawn, and the popcorn mechanism inside was steam. So you can pop the bonnet up top, up here. Oh, when you pop popcorn, it smells wonderful. And the second owners, their son, they took it to car shows, and he worked his way through high school, getting ready for college, selling popcorn at car shows. And we are the third owners, as I said, and we've taken it to the church during Vacation Bible School at times, and made popcorn. I dress up as a clown. But the grandkids love to open the window, make popcorn, and sell it to us. We had a couple here the other day, and they were pricing up their popcorn, and they have a fun time. They open up the windows. Mimi, you want to buy some popcorn? And this is an original feature from the Creeders popcorn wagons. It's a what they call the roasty toasty clown. And when we turn on the mechanism, you can see it's chain driven, and it turns and the popcorn goes round and round and round, and it's really kind of cool. So that was a tough element. This was not in it, and we had to find one, but there are so few left in the country. My son bought us these. We are not gambling people, but they are a lot of fun. We keep quarters in them, and the grandkids play, and boy, do they squeal when they win. And they come over here. I'm sure you're curious as to what this was. This is what we call GC's Candy Shop. That would be grandchildren's candy shop. My husband got the idea from a restaurant that we go to in Gatlinburg. They had a little, it looks like the front of a house inside of there, and we were eating breakfast one morning on vacation, and he said, oh my goodness, we should build that in the mill, but we'll make it a candy shop, mercantile looking thing for the grandbabies. And so if you can see, we've bought this antique display case, and it stays fully stocked at all times for the grandkids. They'll play over there, get their quarters, and they'll come over, and we even ring them out. The last child got 40 cents worth of candy, so we can weigh it on our scales. It's a lot of fun for them. We've kind of decorated it with all kind of things that we have collected. We had no idea when we very first started building this, but back in the day, Fry chocolates were the chocolatiers to royalty in England, and we were able to find that, and that says makers to His Royal Highness the Prince of Wales on there. So that was a neat find. Had no idea about that till we antiqued that up one day. So, but our children and my husband and myself, we give each other antiques. We love hunting and digging for things that would be interesting to put in our display, or just things that are part of our interests. This piece right here, actually, we bought at American Pickers in Nashville. It was featured on a episode, and it's got the tag in there. I'm not exactly sure what episode, but it's on the tag. Last year, I bought this for my husband. As I said, we buy antiques for each other. That is a bakery case from an old country store. I'll take you around and show it to you. Thought that was really neat. See, they would put pies or breads or things like that in there, and that was a lot of fun to find. And this is the back of here. We actually, that's an Edison up here too. Lots of things. You'll see lots and lots and lots of things. Old candy machine. Here's one of the windows. I will take you down to this window. There are two that have medallions in the middle of them, and I've them placed strategically in the middle. This one right here has the cross and the Bible and the crown, and we named this window King of Kings and Lord of Lords, and we put it inside of our living room area, because when you would come in the front door, we want you to know what's the heart of our home. This up here came from the Farmers Bank in a town very near us. And that clock hung there since the early 1900s. And we were able to get a hold of that when they took that building down. And it's really neat to have. We have another very large piece in the kitchen that came from the same town, and I'll tell you about that then when I get to the kitchen. But that was really neat. Every time we drive through that town, that hung there our whole life, way, way, way before we were born. So we have this light. This came from out west. This hung apparently over a poker table out in the Old West. The only thing we did was we hung it from those chains, because at the very top there's a motor, and we can turn a key and bring that down to floor level so we can stand and change the bulbs. That's a paddle wheel tramp art boat. We found that in Lebanon, Ohio. It was handmade by somebody. It's so neat. The only thing it is missing is at the back, the paddle wheel is missing from the end of it. We have to build one of those for it, but we just haven't had the time. And of course you can see the second floor there. That is where the main portion of the studio is. There's a balcony that leads all the way around and goes over, and then over behind, you can see this staircase right here. There's things along the balcony that are part of my studio. And then there's that free hanging balcony there. That's part of the studio. And then let me pull a tight shot. To the left of the quilts, you can see that there's another staircase. That is the third story up there. So I will take you up there intermittently, but we'll finish the tour down here. This was a table. My husband took a antique wheat thrasher and took it apart, and he made that table for us. It's awfully interesting to conversation piece for when company comes. Over here, I wanted to talk about the mantelpieces. The mantelpieces on all the fireplaces are from, they've been harvested from old barns and old beams from the inside of homes from the 1800s. As well as that, if you'll notice, the floors are all wood that has been harvested from old buildings, old barns. We had it just sanded very lightly, but every saw mark, every nail hole, everything to do with this floor is completely original. We had a company that specializes in that help us, and we were able to completely do the flooring through every portion of the mill from the antique wood that was harvested. I'm just going to pull in real quick, real tight. That right there, those are my sweethearts. Those are my family. They give me every reason to wake up every single day. I love my family. So as you can see over here, there's a jukebox. This is so much fun, and it also drives Mimi crazy because the grandkids get that thing going and it's hopping in here. Sometimes it makes my teeth chatter, but it's a lot of fun. And then of course, who doesn't need to have a gas pump? This is a old fence post that is original to our property. That was there way, way, way before we ever owned it. So, like I said, we just collect little things. Who has a dust sweeper? I mean, look at that. And this archway right here is one of two ways. There's a double archway over here. But this is how you make it into the kitchen. If you notice these doors over here, this is the entrance. If I would have gone through the door I showed you, but you can see how very large those doors are. We made that for a reason, because we can just roll that popcorn wagon right in through the door. We could bring anything of any size through the door, and we wanted to be able to do that so that we could house our antiques. As a matter of fact, I'm going to tight shot up on the ceiling up here. That's another large thing that we brought in. My husband built me a governess's buggy one year for Christmas and gave me that. He restored the whole thing. The only thing that's not on it is it has an umbrella that looks like a Mary Poppins umbrella, and it's just enough room for a governess and 2 children. So that was really, really neat. But we're able to bring in all of these big items because we made sure that the doors were big enough. So I'll walk you in the kitchen. Old boxes. Look at these. I just think they're so neat. Cakes and crackers and Franklin sugar. Just old neat. This was a display for a mercantile over here to show water pumps. This is truly an antique telephone that really actually still works. I don't have it plugged in, but someone who worked for the telephone company retrofitted the back of it, and you could plug it into a regular line, pick that little receiver up, hear in your ear, and talk through the little mouthpiece. So it's kind of really neat. Out here is the garage. My husband has a extensive collection of cars. That's for him to show, but that's where part of those are housed out there. This is a door that will take you down to the basement. We're not going to go down there today, but that's how you get there. And this is the fireplace side of the kitchen. As you can see, we've done the ceilings in tin stamp. And then the fireplace again has the antique mantle from harvested beams. And I love to decorate, like I said, period-like, with all of the little treasures that we find. Liz and I thought that it would be a lot of fun if we sat down at the table there and had the fire behind us sometime and recorded. I'm going to step back down to the end of the table. The table is the length and the width of the whole room pretty much. This was made in India out of reclaimed wood. It looks like what I would imagine would look appropriate for a meal house kitchen. And you can sit 24 people at the table. And then the bar over here, there's some of those big barn beams. But you can sit another 8 people at this bar. And over here, we have a little booth table, and we can sit 2 more. So we can actually sit very comfortably, about 30 people in the kitchen at one time. So we're able to do a lot of entertaining. It's a lot of fun. I want to turn around. This is from an old dining room. We don't know, maybe a restaurant, maybe a hotel. We just thought it was so neat when we found it. This farmhouse table, I can actually, if I needed more room, I can pull that table out and comfortably sit about, 6 more people at it if I needed to. And I have plenty of chairs up in the studio, so we could bring that down. This is the other window that has the medallion, and it has the shocks of wheat, and we call this one the bread of life. And I thought that was so appropriate for the kitchen. And these are some antiques, and also storage area for some of the dishes. I love antique dishes and butter churns. Lots of fun things that we have found. Old pet milk recipe book, not for your pets, but if you're a cook, you know what pet milk, canned milk is. I love this. This is always the truth. Y'all need coffee. Oh gosh, and then up here is an old Tone spice cabinet, and it came with, we were able to find the Tone spices to put in it. And so that's this side. Now let me take you around to the working side of the kitchen, one of my favorite places because I love to cook. And over here, I'm going to start right here. Both of my houses have antique stoves in them. I actually cook on them. People ask me all the time, Shellie, do you miss having a self-cleaning oven? No, because the joy I get for cooking on my antique stove outweighs that any day. This is a 1952 Chambers, and you will have seen one of these on Rachel Ray's show. So, but it's an original, nothing's changed on it. We had the fittings all redone for the gas to come through to make sure that they were safe, and it's up to code, up to par, and it is so fun to cook on. The refrigerator is a new stove, refrigerator, excuse me. It's by a company called Big Chill, and it is a modern refrigerator that's made to look old. I did purchase an old refrigerator, but recanted on that idea because I was a little nervous that, you know, maybe I couldn't trust the electric to it. So I went this route. I do want to, when my other house, if the refrigerator goes out, I want to put one of these in the other house too. So, and then there's antiques on the shelf. Excuse the light. This was hand carved in Haiti by someone. And just some more antiques. And a sign that says antiques. This kitchen is definitely my working kitchen. As I said, I'm a big gardener. And in the summer, I come out here and I do a ton of canning. And I dehydrate, and it's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful kitchen to cook in because I've got lots of space, and Lord knows I can make a tremendous, tremendous mess. I wanted to show you this. I had this bookcase put in. I tell you, everybody all the time, I read. I have about 200 cookbooks between here and the other house. I love to cook, and I love to look at old recipe books. My favorite recipe books are from junior leagues from different cities from way, way back. I love to read those, and I have some displayed up there. And I have one sitting right here. And this one's from New Orleans. I am a consummate Southern cook, although I love to cook anything. I love Mediterranean, love Mexican, but I am a definite Southern cook. My grandmother made sure of that. These are kind of special right here. These dishes, my husband ate off those his whole life. His mother and father were given those as a wedding gift, and my sweet mother-in-law gave me those, and I love them so much. I get to see them every day. Just some more of the things in the kitchen. This yellow apron was my grandmother's from my father's side. She's the one who was the Southern cook. And over here is my favorite thing in the whole kitchen. It came from the town that the clock came from. It was from the last mercantile in that town that was built, we were told, between 1850 and 1860. If you look at it, all of those markings, all of that paint, that's original. We did not touch a thing. People pay for that. It came with it. The one thing I did do was back in that time frame, people, they did not have electric, and so to brighten things, they would paint the inside of the cabinets blue, and I did do that. but I'll open them because some of my favorite things are within these doors. This is my red ware collection, and we use these when we have evening dinner or we have company. I love to use the red ware in the pink depression glass. But over here, I call these the supper or the lunch dishes. They're my blue ware. And I have a complete set in this house, and I have a complete set of blue in the main house. And if I could suggest anything to anyone, I'd say this: you only go around once. Eat on the dishes, don't look at them. We eat off those dishes, and if something breaks, it breaks. But you know what? I love them, and I'm only gonna get to use them now, so I do. Here's that little booth banquette thing over here that when Mr. Fry and I come out here and eat, we sit right there together. So it would be fitting that I would put this. This is the year that I met him. These are one of those dish towel calendars. And then I have another one right here because that's the year that I married him. And so I put those right there because when I sit with him and eat by myself, if we eat in the middle, this is where we sit. Our son gave us this. This is so neat. This is from the year we were born. This was a month before my husband was born and 2 months before I was born. And it was a ticket to get into Coney Island here in Cincinnati. And we just thought that was neat. Up here are just some reproductions of antique pictures from Cincinnati. That's our closest big town. And so that brings us back around to the bar, and that's where I keep things that are modern. I wanted to have them hidden from plain sight when you walked in. Dishwasher, ice maker, deep fryer for donuts, and then another oven. That helps out a whole lot for Christmas and the holidays and when we have big company. I did have a person come that was a custom cabinet maker that did reproductions of antique cabinets, and I had him do everything, including antique the cabinets, so that they would fit right in. So now that's the kitchen, and so now we're done with the main floor, so let's head up to what you've been waiting for. This is my hidden staircase, and I love that. In old antebellum homes, you would see a front and a back staircase, and I said when we built the mill, I wanted to have a hidden staircase, and this is what leads to my happy place. We've got antiques here, but as you'll see as I walk up the steps, there are some of my items. There's cross stitching, antique sewing machine, some more of my stitching. This is a rug hooked rug, and if you know anything about the rug hooking community or the punch rug or punch needle community, you will have heard of Yvonne Buse. She has a group on Facebook called Lavender Ladies, and she's been in all of the primitive magazines. She's been in all of them. She's produced so many beautiful patterns. Well, she's a friend of mine, and she did this rug. She has never, ever produced the pattern. This was only for herself, and it's a woman praising. And Yvonne gave me that as a gift, and it is just an absolute treasure to me to own. And I'm so proud to have it hanging in my happy place. Next to it is some more items. I love to enter the county fair, and this is one of my things that I put in the fair. It's called Farm Friends. I got that from the old tattered flag, the patterns. I took a blue ribbon for that in the fair, And if you notice right here on this sheep, instead of using yarn or wool strips, I actually used some raw wool from my sheep for the head and for the body. And so I thought that was really neat. This right here is a rug. I took a class from Deanne Fitzpatrick, and this is a coastal scene, and it was to learn how to hook what they call painterly, like a painter. This, the base of it had 3 squiggles on it basically, and you had to interpret. And listen, I can do anything with thread, fabric. I find no difficulty. I can't draw, and I was really intimidated thinking that I would not be able to pull this off, and I actually think that I did. It's supposed to be a coastal scene, and there's houses coming down the hill and seagrass on the edge and more houses. And as you can see, I took a blue ribbon in the fair with it, so I was pretty proud of that. The red ribbon goes to a stool that you'll see in the studio. I had rug hooked the cover, and I handmade the stool completely, and I entered it in the fair and got that red ribbon for it. This is some wool applique. And here's another piece of my stitching on a box. It's a bent wood box. I absolutely love shaker boxes. This is a little picture that a friend of mine gave me, because of course I'm a quilter and I love to quilt. Another bent wood shaker box with some of my stitching on top of it. And you're going to see a lot of these. This is a basket. I love handmade baskets. And that basket was made by 1803 Ohio Farmhouse Baskets. I actually have one. I will step back down the steps and show you one down there really, really fast. But here is, I just wanted to finish this wall here. These are, that was a punch rug. This was a punch rug, another blue ribbon from the fair. But I love these baskets from 1803. Let me walk you downstairs and show you one real quick before I go the rest of the way up. I forgot to show you, but this is another one that she made. And Michelle Little Stitchers did the wool work and made those, that lavender. Isn't that not beautiful? Okay, it was worth going back down the steps for, but let's go back up so that you can see the rest. Okay, up above where I have these things, I have this shelf. My son bought me this shelf for Christmas, he and his wife, one year, so that I could display things that I loved. There's an old picture with dress. That's what they would have been dressing in back in the day. Jars full of old tatting thread. A sewing machine my son bought me. And then some of my stitching in here. And always tomatoes. Our friend Susan that works at Keepsakes, she made this for one of these for Liz and I and gave it to us for a gift. You saw Liz in the last video give me that. And those needle packs in that needle book. And I also showed that button polishing tin. Just little meaningful things. The little pin cushions here, here, and here were original. This one has a horse, sawdust and horsehair pin cushion. It's so very old, and it's got the branding on there. It's from Corticelli Silk, but I love these. They were what they would have given or sold in, you know, your mercantile when you would go to buy your threads, and I thought that was so neat. to find those. A little more stitching. One year my husband gave me this because I love to quilt, and it's a gold thimble. But I won't quilt with it because I don't want to nick it. Another thing up here that I want to show you is from the World's Fair back in the 1930s. Oh, I've got it upside down. It is a needle case, but also a darning egg. You pop it off and the needle case pops up, and you can turn the top and put what your needle by size into that. I just thought that was so neat. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it was in the 1930s. It was a gift at the World's Fair, and so, boy, that was fun to find. Now I'm gonna back up a little bit and let you see that. One day I hope that I have all these walls, my husband says the same thing, covered in things that I've made. It's because this is my happy place up here. Now I'm going to turn around and I'll do the same that I did in the living room, and I'm going to do a real slow. I'll go and I'll pan the entire floor, and then I'll come back and talk about things specifically. You saw all that in the last video. That's how you get to the other side to get to that loft up there. But this is the main floor of my studio. That is the third floor loft. That's a bathroom, and I will show you the bathroom, and that's a bedroom. You know, I have a friend, Nancy and Jenny, who said that if they make it back to StitchCon, they want to stay here. There's your bedroom, girls. Come on. The wonderful thing about the mill is when we do have company that comes and stays with us, we just put them in the mill and they have their very own space. You know, sometimes when you stay with people, you feel like you're under their feet, or as the person hosting, you feel like you're on top of people. And so it's a wonderful thing. They can come out here. The kitchen is stocked, and friends can come and stay. And they're just real comfortable, and they have their own place. Okay, now let me walk back over here. This was from a post office. This was the cubbies at a post office at a town really, really near here. We found that at an auction one time, and I thought that was really neat. I keep some of my fat eighths and binding strips and little things to keep them right in front of my face, so you know, if you see it, you'll remember it. Up here are there are two antique sewing machines. I'm sorry about that glare. Let me pan back out a little bit. Two antique sewing machines on the shelf. And then this piece would have been in a mercantile or general store. And you can turn the wheel with that arrow, and it had needles for your treadle or a new shuttle for your treadle machine. And it's just a really neat piece. I love that. And of course, anything that has to do with stitching, sewing, anything of that nature, I absolutely love it. As I talked about before, I have a library for anything that I do. Up here is sewing. Down here is about weaving and spinning. There's more books up there about quilting. I subscribe to Block from Missouri Star Quilt Company. Plus, I've got patterns and magazines and hosted in those. Another antique sewing machine. A little fabric here and here. And I'll come back over here because we talk about my hoop obsession. Adjustos, Gibbs hold tights. That's where some Duchesses are up here. And then there's this one. I have no idea what it is, but it is so neat. Look at that screw on there. And it's very well made, very nice wood. And so I hung it right there. These are all my Harwick hoops. There's some stitching. I received that as a gift at StitchCon one year. In this cabinet, I house all of my DMCs. I have a supply drawer that has a label maker, floss drops. In this drawer, I have Cosmo, and then my white and ecru, and then also some shiny threads. The way that I have this is I have them divided like this. So this is the 400, 500 drawer. So all of these are 400, all of these are 500. I have approximately 3 full sets between kitted items in this cabinet of DMC. And as well, I've got Aurifil Aurifloss. I love that. I like the spools. It's kind of fun, but that's how I house my DMCs. Over here is some more fabrics. Then some of my Gibbs hold tights, some of my queens. These are all princesses. Some of my scissors. This cabinet holds patterns, templates, project bags, and then the bottom 3 drawers are all pre-cut quilting material. They're called a charm pack. And over on this side, I have my sticker books for my day of my book of days, magazines, Punch Needle and Primitive, Stitcher, Cross Stitch and Craft, Cross Stitch. In these, I keep some kitted items over here. Most of my kitted items actually are in the main house because I probably predominantly stitch more over there while I'm watching television with my husband. This cabinet right here has books on stitching. There's books on stitching and quilting over here and more over here. These are quilting threads. And but over here there are in this drawer there's wool applique. There's items to finish in here. 2 of the drawers are absolutely jam-packed with cross-stitch fabric, and then another one is full of kits, and that one's full of kits too. This cabinet is full of all of my finishing items to finish projects with. And then my serger and my Saju boxes. We're going to talk about the Saju boxes real quick, but right here I was enabled by Brenda and the Cereal Starter. She got one of these Stitcher's caddies, and I just thought it was beautiful. So I had one made for myself. In these, I house all of my 103 silks by color through the whole drawers. I do have some hanks of Mo's silk. And so, but all of my silks are over here to stitch with. And then my Saju boxes. Okay, everybody, I know that I had several people say, Shellie, are you ever gonna show us? And you know what, I am. I'll show you real quick. These are some of the items that I have in there. These are bobbins, you know, to bobbin your thread on from Saju. I'm sorry that I didn't show. I was just thinking that they are gifts. But you know what? Let's show them anyway. You'll be excited if you get one. If I go to a retreat or if I send something, you know, maybe I'll give something in a giveaway or something of that nature. So those are some of the things that I got in the drawers. I got some needle books. And this is just a pad of paper, but it was neat. It was from Saju, so everything they have is just so adorable. In these drawers, I purchased about, I think I got 6 of these with different scenes on the front. But I thought they would be very neat to give in a gift at a retreat, because you could have all your friends put their names and numbers and their Instagram handles, or, you know, things like that. But they're also just cute to keep notes, you know, if you wanted to keep notes on your stitching. But so that's what those are. Let me see this book. Yeah. So the only thing different is the color of the paper and the cover. And then, this is not new, but all these little books, Saju puts them together. And what they are is, they are vintage cross-stitch patterns that they've reproduced into these little books. So these are a collection of mine, and I just thought it was fitting that I would store them in the drawer. So those are the things over there. You might recognize, as I said, this was the view that you had last time. Liz and I plopped ourselves down at my hand quilting frame and we shot our video, because you see we had plenty of room to spread out underneath it and around it. So I do hand quilt, I long arm quilt, and if you can quilt it, I like to do it anyway, there is. And so right now I'm working on this quilt and hand quilting it, and I have invited all of my friends. This one actually is going to be for me, and it's got the vintage calicos in it, reproductions, and I love that. And so I have, anytime a friend walks in, I say to him, come here, I want to teach you, and I make them drop a couple stitches into my quilt. And so that way I have a memory of them helping out, and plus maybe they'll want to learn to quilt. This, my mother-in-law gave me this. This was my husband's great-grandmother's sewing box. I keep all of my hand quilting items inside of it, and it still houses some of her items. My favorite needles, tons of thimbles, and things like that. But I may have tons of thimbles, but let me show you something. Inside that sewing box was this thimble. And you can see that it has been very well worn. Well, this was my husband's grandmother's, and it fits me to a T. And it's my favorite thimble. And so, although I have some of these beautiful German silver thimbles, open top thimbles, and I adore them, this is my favorite. And although I never met my husband's great-grandmother, I feel a kinship to her, and it's so special to me that my mother-in-law saw to it that I had those, and I quilt with her thimble. That's such a treat for me. Over here, you heard in my video, I love tins, but I love sewing boxes, and what better to have than a tin sewing box? There's 2 of them there. This is a little bit of wool applique that I've done, and a little sewing bag. This is my to-go quilting sewing box. If I'm going to run and I'm going to be doing any hand piecing, I'm having a little bit of a hard time. It's kind of hard one-handedly opening. Well, anyway, there we go. This was handmade by New Hampshire shaker boxes. You can find them on Etsy. This is a size 6 sewing basket, and it does, like I showed you, have the pin cushion built into the side. But I also have a number 8 shaker sewing box. It's in the main house for when I'm piecing and such in the other house. But this is the one I grab when I'm going to leave the house and go stitch on quilting someplace else. But I love shaker boxes. And this thing right here that's sitting on, this is called a Big Shot Pro. This is a die cutter for cutting quilting. This right here, I can cut a whole bib out at once, and we'll hear why I would be cutting bibs out in a few minutes. But over here is my rocking chair, an antique rocking chair. But this is the footstool that I rug hooked the cover for, and then I hand made it and entered it into the fair in 2018, and I won a red ribbon for that. Made that whole thing all by myself. I made this cover for this table, and I also made to match the curtains across the room and the antique ironing board cover. I made the cover for the antique ironing board is what I was trying to say. But here's some of my stitching. It's a Tammy Black Spring Messenger. That was from her Pin Keep Club. This was also something from that same Pin Keep Club that I made to go with it. Thimbles, scissors. We all know I have an issue with scissors. These are beautiful trims that I ordered in from the Netherlands. And then I just put them on old spools. It looked really pretty on my antique tomato pin cushion. All right, I'm probably needed to slow down so you could see that better. And then this is my stitching chair. That thing is so comfortable. I climb up there with my dogs, and we sit right here in front of the fireplace. We pop on the TV. Those are antique sewing machines my son got me. And get really comfortable, and this is where I stitch. And I have my scissor keeper. I was given this as a gift at StitchCon last year. This was my exchange gift. You saw Liz in the last video give me this beautiful needle minder, and I brought it over here because it matches my beautiful Ort jar that my son gave me. And all of that is sitting on top of another one of those accordion sewing boxes. My daughter gave me this for Christmas one year. And this one is filled to the brim with everything that I would need to stitch. All my 28 peacemakers, corner gauges, needle housing. Who doesn't need their seam ripper when they have to rip, 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 rip? This is a really neat thing. I cannot remember who made this, but you can poke it in there and it'll hold your needle. So that's really kind of neat. It was beautifully made. I wish that I knew who made this. I don't know. My markers, highlighters, just all the things that I would need to stitch. And of course, my light over there. And if I have any issues with seeing, I do bring in my magnifier, but I try to just use real strong readers and the light. One of the things I wanted to show you over here, this is one of my favorite antiques in the whole building, because when I was 18 years old, I cleaned houses, and I cleaned for an antique dealer. And in their bedroom over their bed, they had one of these arrow collar cabinets. I just can't tell you why it is that I loved it so much, but it was just so neat. I had never thought about antiques. I had never had that on my radar, and I saw that cabinet and I loved it. It took me till 2017 to find one. And I looked from the time I was 18 years old, and I had to have it because that is what actually made me begin to see antiques and begin to just love them. So I had to have one, and it was so neat when I found that. So a tour wouldn't be complete without the piece that made me actually fall in love with antiques. And over here, this desk was my daughter's desk when she lived at home. And I have my featherweight sewing machine here, and I do use it. Some fabric, antique tins, some Dovo scissors that you can't get anymore, a Saju measuring tape. Let me try to pull this out. Yeah, there you go. You can see it now. It's all metric, but it's kind of cool. Another white antique sewing machine. And then my beautiful pin cushion that our friend Jennifer, the Calculated Stitcher, made for us. She made one for me and one for Liz. Hi, Jennifer. Some more of my scissors. This is my Memphis Sphinx Singer antique sewing machine that my son bought me. It's a hand crank. It works. All of the sewing machines work, and I love them. And this is my Belding Silks box. And we've got it filled. We've hunted down Belding Silks, and they really are Belding Silks in there. There's little treasures that have been given to me. Our good friend Susan, who works at Keepsakes, made one of these for me and Liz, and that was a Christmas present. And those are glass, those little pins. They're so pretty. My friend Kathy Lounsbury from the So-and-So, she gave me this at the Farm Girl Retreat. I love it. Look at that little tomato. You'll never have enough tomatoes in your sewing room. And little old tchotchkes, things that I found. And that's a hand-woven basket. These are templates for my sewing. Little drawers, because I love drawers. One of my rug hooking projects. And a big old basket of cross-stitch patterns. I'm going to turn around here. I'm going to show you my sewing table for a reason. I want you to look down low. There's a skirt around it. Underneath there, now I'm not going to, well, let me see. Let me pull it up. There are, this is storage. I have 6 of these under here, and this holds fabric to stitch on, patterns, and quilting scraps. You'll see over here too, I just love those little drawers. Those have got finishing things and quilt kits. But underneath here is just a world of cross-stitch fabric, and that's how, and patterns, and that's how I try to store them and be neat. I like to be neat and tidy. In here, I have where I keep my overdyed threads, and I do have a hoop stand. Don't use that very often, but I have it in case I need it. But this is Valdani's, Color and Cotton, Gast. This is Classic Colorworks and Weeks. Those are all of my overdyes that are not kitted in projects. That way they're available to me at all times, and that's how I store them. Antique pictures, I love, that's antique stitching. I can't, it's with that light, it's so hard to see it. I love that. It's perforated paper. I did not stitch it. It's an antique. And then as well, I love this picture. I am a shepherdess, and that is a shepherdess with her sheep. Love that old picture. On my table, my 3-tier tray is used to house things that I need when I sew. And measuring tapes, and most importantly, chocolate. Scissors, pins, whatever I might need. This is what is on top of my sewing table. These are my rustic moire, or if I'm saying that right, I have no idea. The wool threads for wool applique, machine embroidery, and quilting threads. Scissors, just cause, who doesn't need 700 pairs of scissors? This is my Juki sewing machine. This is where I piece when I'm generally piecing quilts and such. This is a Michelle Palmer print that I got. You can find her on Etsy. She has the most beautiful, whimsical designs. I love her. She does punch needle. She does graphic pieces like this and rug hooking. I love her, but I love what this says. By doing what you love, you inspire and awaken the hearts of others. And I think that's what I love about our community. No matter what task I'm doing with a needle or a hook, that's the sentiment. There's antique buttons. This is a box my daughter gave me with the butterflies. And then she wrote me an absolutely beautiful, beautiful letter for, I believe it was Mother's Day or my birthday, and I keep it there so I can see it every time I sit down. And then I'll pan around here. That's my ribbon wall, because who doesn't need a ribbon? Another 1803 Ohio farmhouse basket. I love this. I carry that to retreat, and she's now made a bigger one that says stitching on it, and I ordered one yesterday, so I have another one of those coming. A little bit more of my stitching that speaks the truth. You cannot count your day complete, can you? Antique buttons and tomatoes. And this is a little bird that I sewed. Kathy Lounsbury. This was my gift exchange that she made for me in Amana. Got antique irons, and there's the real iron. That's the steam station. I can't live without that for quilting. Antique ribbon holder and my big embroidery machine. I sew on it, but it does embroidery as well. It could almost cook dinner. It's so computerized, but I love it. This is another 1803 Ohio farmhouse basket. I got this in Amana. It's an antique stitching bird. This is a reproduction. I've got to make a pincushion for this one, but I found that Teresa Kogut actually found those and told us all about it at the retreat, and we ran right over and got them. Another antique pincushion. Love it. With the modern tomato pins in it. Aren't they perfect? I just love them. And this is my treadle machine, and I absolutely, unequivocally do stitch on it. As a matter of fact, these quilt blocks, these are, I'm making a quilt for myself. This is from the scraps from when I did mask making with my sewing group during the pandemic. And so this is one of the good things that came out of the pandemic, was helping others to stay safe. And so I saved all my scraps. That entire basket's filled right there with them, and I'm making that quilt in memory. And that's a wonky star, and I got that pattern from Lori Holt. You can find that on YouTube or on her channel. This is an antique button box that was my husband's great-grandmother's. My mother-in-law there again treated me with a blessing. Now we're going to walk over here, and we're going to talk about the question. All of the antique vintage quilts. No, I did not make these. I did not. You're going to see there's an awful lot of them, but I got a lot of questions sent to me in private messenger, and I did not answer them on purpose. Please forgive me, but you'll understand why. These quilts are housed here. They're my inventory because I actually have an Etsy shop. It's called Small Town Craft Goods on Etsy. And I take imperfect quilts and I completely take them apart, and I make all kinds of different things with them and repurpose them. We had talked about in episode number 1 about we love to repurpose things. Well, there you go. I repurpose old quilts. I take things that people spent many hours creating that would otherwise not be usable, and I turn them into new treasures and give them a second life. People have asked me, Shellie, why do you have them by the window? You can't conserve them that way. Well, I wasn't trying to conserve them, and I appreciate your advice. Thank you so much for that. But actually, they're not in great shape, and the inventory goes round and round and round. They don't stay there permanently. They get taken down. and used, but that is the purpose behind all the quilts. So there's the answer to your question. I knew that I was going to be gone on that vacation for multiple weeks, and so I did not answer your questions because I thought, oh my goodness, I didn't stock up the shop super big or anything because I knew I would be gone. And then if I told you, then I wouldn't be able to ship it to you. So you get the meaning behind that. So I do need to do a shop update. And if you're interested, like I said, that's Small Town Craft Goods at Etsy.com. And I'll put the listing in the description box of how you can get there. And so let's go upstairs. That's an antique weaving loom above us. And you can see right here, I have tried to bobbin lace, and I have several bobbin lace pillows right here and here and here. The highway stitcher, she does bobbin lace, and I got to meet her at StitchCon, and we talked a lot about that. So that's my very first sewing machine. I bought it for $22.50 at Goodwill the year I got married because I wanted to make things for my family. And this is just a sewing box with rug hooking stuff in it, actually, for things that I do. And my mother-in-law gave me this. I call her Mrs. Beasley, the keeper of the quilts. Her little glasses remind me of that old Miss Beasley doll from when I was a kid. You're going to see tons and tons of yarn. So I will tell you why you're going to see tons and tons of yarn and tons of things up here. These are yarns that I spun myself right there on my spinning wheels. And these are part of my wools. But you'll see baskets and baskets of yarn all over this third floor. There's the quilts, more of the quilts up here. But the reason why I have lots and lots of yarn is I lead a ministry at my church that makes items for local NICUs and crisis pregnancy centers. And what I'm showing you right now up here goes right along with that. These are flatbed knitting machines. Now, my knitting friends may boo me for that, but for me to be able to make items at a more rapid pace, I learned how to use a knitting machine so that I could make more, because I want to take my time and my talents and I want to be a blessing to my community. So you're going to see lots and lots of yarn, because on top of quilts and afghans and all kind of little toys and sweaters and things like that, we make all kind of things to help those in our community. So you're going to see baskets and baskets and baskets and a wall of yarn down on the other side. But that's what it's for. This is for a quilt I'm working on that's on my quilting table downstairs. This is one of my spinning wheels, my Jasmine hand quilting hoop. Those are just some quilt blocks that I've worked on. And this is my mess of a wall of fabric, which, to be honest with you, it looks really nice and neat today. This is my long arm quilter. I have a hoop frame. I do not long arm for hire. I quilt with this to do my quilts for the baby ministry and my own quilts, and I will, for close friends and such, a long arm quilt for that, but I'm not a service. But I did treat myself to a Unique 15 Pro to make life easy, because it sure does. It's a lot easier to quilt free motion on this than it is to try to roll it through a big old quilt through a regular sewing machine. Over here, this is another one of my antique machines. I love having it up here. If I'm not piecing quilts up here, I most assuredly will do binding or anything that I need to scoop up. 2 Christmases ago, I sat up here and hid from my kids in case they came in, and I made each of them king-size quilts on that machine. for Christmas, if I heard the jingle on the bell, I would run down the steps. I had the other sewing machine on so that they would think I was down there and I would beat them to the second floor. But but this is really neat. This was given to me from a very dear friend, family friend, and it came from their great aunt, and her name was Madge. She bought it brand new in 1927, and she was the only owner until they gave it to me. And so this white rotary's name is Madge. This is my weaving loom. These are dish towels and dish rags I'm working on for the house. More yarn. This is a 1908 Laguerre hand crank sock knitting machine. It's a lot of fun to make socks on it. I love to hand knit socks, but boy, when you want to make a bunch of socks for Christmas, it really comes in handy. Knitting on a machine, though, is like a whole nother language. These are all hand spindles to spin on. A yarn swift. This is a little band loom. And over here, this is a little table loom to weave on. Yarn, 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 fabric, fabric. This is a rug that I'm rug hooking right now. This is tomato season from Lori Brecklin from Not Forgotten Farms. I got to actually meet Lori. I went to Rug Week at Souter Village a couple years ago, and I took one of her classes. She's a really great lady. This is a punch rug that I'm almost done with. This is done with wool yarn. All of this main color I spun on my spinning wheel myself. I'm going to finish this. I've got to trim it down, finish this one little section and bind it, and that'll go in the hallway coming up the steps. But that's what goes on up here on the 3rd floor. And if I'm having company and I've got a mess downstairs, I actually run upstairs and put it all up here. A girl's got to have a place to hide a few things, don't we? We're about an hour and 24 minutes, so I'm going to try to wrap this up a little. But I do want to let you see the rest of this floor and go see the other side. This is the bedroom. And I have it decorated for a specific reason. My mother's mother loved roses. And when we found this bedroom set, it's from the 1800s. It's all hand painted with all kind of flowers on it. And I thought, what a great inspiration. I will decorate the bedroom in the mill house with everything flowers and roses for my grandmother. We did not call her grandmother. I had a honey. She did not want to be called grandmother. And this is her. That's my honey. And her graduation day, she was born in 1920, and she's carrying a big bouquet of roses, her favorite thing. And this is Honey's room. That's what we call the bedroom. Nancy and Jenny, this will be where you sleep if you come. This was actually one of her little purses from back in the day. It was a belt purse. Isn't that neat? My son found a second one that looked like it, so it's great display there. And I just keep period pieces all over this room. I'm trying to get without the glare. There, I think that's a little better. An antique quilt. But look at the bed. Isn't that beautiful? We bought that, and then I've got it all covered in roses and antique quilts. Dog beds right next to it. I even found an old punch rug with roses on it. And this room, like I said, is dedicated to my grandmother. One of my children bought me this old stitched piece. It's perfect for in here. This is my family Bible from my mother's side. And my Honey's family, her grandparents, they were married 1894 Christmas Day. And so this room is dedicated to my honey. Another neat thing is that is the cradle that I rocked my babies in. My mother bought me that. Okay, this door over here would lead you to the bathroom, but I'm going to take you this way. Our house was featured in Home Trends magazine, and this is what was on the front cover. This mirror and this sink in the corner of the tub, they loved our mirror that we made with shoe forms. But this is the bathroom, and all the walls in here are wood harvested from antique buildings. This is another piece of wool work that I did. I mounted it on that stool. This is a table that was actually a side table in my honey's house. So it's perfect that it is in the bathroom adjoining honey's room. And this is for real, an antique toilet. We found this in a town near us. It had been in a home of a family that generationally the family lived in it, and it had been there since it was built. So that was kind of neat. This is the best kind of bathroom books, don't you think? And then over here is the bathtub. It's a new, not an antique, but boy, that slipper-footed clawfoot tub is awful wonderful. This little shelf over the tub, we've put all kind of antique bottles and items that you would have found way, way back in the day. Kind of neat. But that's the bathroom. This is a repurposed piece of quilt, 1-inch hexies, girls. That woman did some work. So I took that old scrap and we framed it and put it there. Okay, last but not least, we'll make it to the other side of this studio floor. These are just some things that we have hanging on the wall. It's my antique piano. Time frame, I love to play my piano. I'm going to turn you around so that you can see. This is what the view is from up here. Now I'm eye level with that chandelier, and the fireplace actually is about 45 foot high. But over here are all of my spinning wheels. Some are antique. This is an antique. This is new. This is an old tin type music player. Two more of my spinning wheels. This is my first spinning wheel. I got it at the Smoky Mountain Spinnery. Miss Nancy Thompson owns that. She's a good friend of mine. Love, love, love her. Both of those came from the Smoky Mountain Spinnery. My mother-in-law just got me this one for Christmas. She found it, if you can believe. I think they gave $25 for it. And this is my oldest spinning wheel. It's a flax wheel, a dual wheel, and it is from 1790s. And then I passed by this. This is a old Triumph motorcycle that my husband bought. And this is a little piece of tramp art. I don't want to make it go, but I can hit a button and it will turn and the windmill turns, but it goes click, 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 and it'll just be click, click, clicking through the whole video. All of this yarn right here is what I use and glean from for the baby group for myself. Of course, here's my books. There's always books. Whatever I do, there's books, patterns, books. But I have to use acrylic for the hospitals and the pregnancy centers because of allergies for babies, but this is my yarn that I pull from for that. I know it seems like a lot of supplies, but I do work in a ministry, so it's not obnoxious. I say that before I walk up the steps because it's gonna look obnoxious even worse now. But this is, I call this the fiber loft. But these are wool yarns, and that's rug punching yarns. These are this is acrylics for baby group, and there's a combination of more up there. And then of course there's all kind of stuff up here, my yarn swift and yarns that I have spun myself, and some that are blanks for me to dye. I'm having a hard time coming up with the word. Tapestry yarn so that I can dye it and then punch rug it. And here's fiber to spin. And speaking of that, I have some of my sheep's wool right here that I've been preparing on the carder here. Sometimes I card it, sometimes I comb it. I have a drum carder and hand cards. And up here in these drawers is fiber from all over the place. Different shepherdesses, shepherds, dyers, and I can spin all of that. That's a big antique storefront cabinet. It's wonderful, keeps it nice and safe in there. But I call this the fiber loft because obviously there's a whole bunch of fiber up here. And this is some of the wool. This is the natural color off the sheep. It was not my sheep's wool, but I spun all of this yarn. I'm gonna make a sweater with that. So I'm gonna turn us around real quick. Here I am. Okay, friends. It has been so wonderful visiting with you. I hope that you enjoyed the tour of the mill, and I hope that that takes your curiosity down a little bit. I thank you for being interested and wanting to visit my home today. And the next time I meet you will be next week. Liz will be back with me, and we'll be shooting Flosstube number 3. And if there's any questions, you can put them in the comments. I hope that I answered the questions that people had asked me prior to this. And like I said, at the end of the video, I will post, I'll connect some pictures of the greenhouse, the garden, which is resting right now, and some of my farm animals. But it has been a joy for you to come into my home, and I thank you so much for being my stitchy friend. And until I see you again, I wish you many happy stitches.